How does a ruler enforce the law when the very people breaking it are considered entirely above it? In 19th century Thiruvananthapuram, the royal family faced exactly this problem. There was a highly trafficked sacred pathway connecting the monumental Sree Padmanabhaswamy Temple to the neighboring Mithranandapuram Temple. The elite Nambuthiri Brahmins lived in compounds lining this exact route. Throughout the day, they would chew betel leaves and casually spit the bright red juice all over the street. Because these priests sat at the absolute apex of the social and religious hierarchy, standard law enforcement was paralyzed. To arrest them would risk a societal revolt, making this a severe crisis of state authority versus religious privilege. The social hierarchy was so rigid that a common royal guard couldn't even scold a Brahmin, let alone arrest one. As a result, this once pristine religious corridor devolved into a foul, sticky obstacle course. Even the royal family had to carefully pick their way through the disgusting mess during their temple visits. A simple royal decree wouldn't work here. The state needed a solution that would force a change in behavior without explicitly disrespecting the religious order. This meant the royal family couldn't just sweep the streets. They had to deploy a psychological intervention, a challenge that would test two very different philosophies of leadership. Crown Prince Marthanda Varma took the first attempt. His leadership style was gentle and pious. He believed in the innate goodness of his subjects, assuming people would do the right thing if given the right context. He ordered the pathway thoroughly cleaned. Then, along the edges of the road, he planted sacred tulsi, a plant deeply revered in Hinduism, and hired a dedicated guard to water and protect them. His logic was completely faith-based.
He figured that a holy priest, out of ingrained religious reverence, would never spit upon a sacred plant. The plan failed immediately. The priests didn't alter their habits at all. They simply spat their red betel juice directly onto the sacred leaves. The prince's idealism had blinded him to a harsh reality. He underestimated the sheer power of human habit and the deep arrogance that comes with unchecked entitlement. Appealing to higher moral virtues falls flat when you are dealing with a social class accustomed to systemic privilege and zero consequences. Not long after, his older brother, the reigning monarch, King Swathi Thirunal, walked the path and observed the ruined experiment with a highly cynical eye. The king held a vastly different worldview. He remarked that they were living in the Kaliyuga, an age of vice, where wearing a priest's robes no longer guaranteed righteous behavior. He rejected his brother's gentle approach. He ordered his guards to rip the dying, defiled plants right out of the soil. In their place, he introduced a much heavier deterrent. He brought out heavy iron constraints and issued a strict secular order. Anyone caught spitting on this road would be immediately locked in them. The results were undeniable. The centuries-old habit of defiling the temple path stopped completely, overnight. When cultural reverence decays, a leader has to recognize that only the credible threat of physical consequences will maintain public order. The two brothers looked at the exact same perpetrators and saw two entirely different things, revealing a sharp contrast in how they understood human nature. The prince saw holy men, priests who merely needed a gentle religious nudge to guide them back to their faith. The king looked past the robes and saw inherently flawed humans who required a hard physical boundary to keep their behavior in check. The methods a leader chooses to solve a problem act as a mirror. They reflect their deepest underlying beliefs about the people they govern. Idealism is a wonderful trait for a human being to possess. But effective governance often requires a leader to trade that innocence for cold, hard pragmatism in order to actually protect the realm.